I met Benedict the 16th, because he was the Pope at the time when I was there. Yeah. So that was about, I think, 2000. I started in 2007 or 2008. So he was, when the Pope took a trip to the Holy Land, I was able to be on that trip. It was really fantastic.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. My guest today is originally from New York, from Long Island, but has traveled across the ocean, has lived in Italy, lives in Germany, and she's done all sorts of interesting things. One of them, which I really want to know more about, which intrigued me, is she was a communications specialist at the Vatican. She's a writer, the author of the book SOS Podcasts, appropriate for a podcast episode. And she is a professor of communications in Brussels. Welcome to Most Memorable Journeys, Rosamaria Mancini.
Hi, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Welcome. And I meant to say the funny stuff that made me laugh when I prepared. She's also a self-described perfectionist, hypochondriac, and a hyperprotective parent. We're going to talk about that as well, because I'm sure it's not as bad as you think. So how did you start? You were born in the US. You were born in Long Island?
No, I was actually born in Brooklyn, New York, and I spent my childhood there. And then I moved to Long Island as an adolescent, and grew up in a nice Italian family, Italian parents who had immigrated from Italy. And I ended up, wanting to go to New York City because New York City is fantastic. So I went to college in New York City, and I earned a degree in journalism. And started working at various news organizations. And I honestly thought, there's really no better place for journalism than a dynamic city like New York, where there are so many news organizations and publications and so forth. So I really never imagined the life outside of that until I got an offer for a position that was in Rome. And it was with the Wall Street Journal. It was a reporting assistant position. And I thought, well, if there's any place I could go to for a year or so, then it would be Italy, because I had Italian roots. So it was an offer I couldn't pass up, and I left. So, but it was hard. It was very hard because, I come from a very tight-knit Italian family. So nobody ever really leaves the nest. So that was challenging. And then what happened was, lots of things happened. So I ended up, never moving back to New York. So, and now I live in Germany.
Let's take a little break here.
Yes.
You speak Italian.
I do speak Italian. Yes.
Did you grow up speaking Italian in the family?
I did grow up speaking Italian at home. Yes.
That's probably also one of the reasons why you were offered the job, I would imagine.
Yes. So, because I could communicate. My Italian was good. I mean, it got better when I was there, but my Italian was good. I could read, I could write. So it was, it was a natural place for me to go. It wasn't a place where I didn't understand everything. So it was just natural. And I had vacation there as a child as well. Like, we would go visit my grandmother and my grandfather. So it was a normal place to visit per se, but not to live, I have to say.
I do agree with you that New York is one of the greatest cities in the world, but Rome is not bad either. I think you must have had a good time in Rome.
Yeah, I loved Rome. I mean, Rome is pretty fantastic. I mean, it's obviously very different from New York. I remember that, like, my metro stop was Colosseo. So it was very different from like 14th Street and Union Square, as opposed to getting off the Metro B line in Rome, and then you walk out and there's the Colosseum, like in all of its glory for you to see. So Rome was a fantastic city to live in. A little difficult, challenging, but just so beautiful that I think you forget the overcrowded buses and the tourists that are everywhere driving you potentially crazy. but it's just so beautiful. And, and then of course the typical Italian stuff, but the food is fantastic too. So that doesn't hurt to to live in Rome and
Totally. But
Italy in general.
you were sent by the Wall Street Journal, but that was not in the Vatican. That had nothing to do with the Vatican, did it?
No, it didn't. I did the Wall Street Journal for a job for a year, and it was great. I got to travel all around Italy. I met interesting people. I wrote great stories. But then I got an offer to work for the Vatican in one of its communications offices. And it was another offer that I couldn't, not take advantage of.
It's an offer from
Yeah.
the Vatican. Come
Yeah.
on.
It was very cool. It was very different, but it was interesting. It was definitely interesting.
Did you meet the Pope?
I met Benedict the 16th, because he was the Pope at the time when I was there. Yeah. So that was about, I think, 2000. I started in 2007 or 2008. So he was, when the Pope took a trip to the Holy Land, I was able to be on that trip. It was really fantastic.
Really? Where else did you go? Where did you go? How many trips did you go on with the Pope?
I only went on one trip with the Pope, and that was to the Holy Land. So we visited, obviously, Jerusalem, Palestine. We went to Jordan on that trip, and we had also, I worked in the comms office, so we were accompanying a second group of journalists along with the journalists who were on the papal plane, and it was, amazing.
That for me would probably be the most memorable journey.
Yeah, it was great. And then the best part was that we got a group from New York to come. So with my mom and my sister and all of their Catholic friends, we organized a group and they met us there. So it was also this great reunion of sorts, because these New Yorkers flew in, as there were thousands and thousands of pilgrims, but this group of New Yorkers that I knew were also there at the same time. So it was really memorable. And to go to those places that I had never been before, from a Roman Catholic perspective, it's just very, very moving to go to the place where they, the Cenacolo, where they had the Last Supper. It's just amazing. I would love to do it again. I haven't done it again, though, but I would love to.
Yeah, that definitely sounds very impressive. And then what happened? How long did you stay in the Vatican?
I stayed in the Vatican for 5 years. And, it was an experience also, besides the papal journeys. It's nice. It's nice to have this sort of community with you, but you also have to sort of blend in with the community. I always laugh because at that time I had to dress I wasn't very young then. So I had to dress a lot simpler. And I was in Rome, fashion capital, Italy, dressing clothes. And there I was with, my very nun-like skirts, because my boss was a Monsignor and we responded to a cardinal. And they had told me don't wear bright color nail polish. And when somebody once told me not to show my toes, and I was like, it's 35 degrees Celsius. It's hot in Rome. And then I was like, well, the Jesuits to wear open shoes. Why can't we wear open shoes? So I did wear open shoes, but I toned down my nail color polish. So it was, barely there pinks. But I did that for 5 years and it was fantastic. And then I ended up and this time I ended up getting married and I had a child. And then eventually my husband was assigned to, he was in the Italian Air Force, and he was assigned to a position in Germany. So we didn't sleep for a long time, thinking about if this was the right thing to do or not. And then we decided that, we should give it a shot. So I left Rome and we moved to Germany. But I've been here ever since. So in that first time that I got here, I decided that I wanted to do something challenging, because I wasn't sure what I was going to do, because I was somebody who's used to always working, and now I wasn't working and I had a child, and I was like, what am I going to do all day? Even though child rearing is a giant responsibility, I just thought I need to do something else. So I decided that I was going to get a PhD in writing, and I did that when I first got here.
But that's quite lonely, though, isn't it? Because even though you have something to do, you don't really go. You're not in touch
Exactly.
with so many people. That must have been a very, very big change. Different country, and I'm sure Germany. Well, I know that it was definitely much less colorful than Rome, where you
Abs- Absolutely, yes. And it was very hard. And, even besides working on the PhD, which is a lonely thing to do because it's you and your computer and you're studying. And then I was in this place that is kind of rainy. It rains a lot here. It's gray, different shades of gray, but it's gray. And I don't speak the language. I speak a little bit now, but I didn't speak the language. And I was like, what am I going to do with myself? And I did notice that they walk a lot here. I mean, they walk a lot in Italy too, but I don't know where they're going, but they walk here. Like, they don't, like, in Italy, you usually go to a coffee shop or to a piazza, but here, I don't know where they go. I just noticed that people were walking around my neighborhood, but my neighborhood like had, chicken and horses. And I was like, where are they going? So I said, you know what? I'm going to start to walk too. And I started to walk, but I put my earbuds in and I was like, what am I going? I have to listen to something. So I knew about podcasts, but I didn't really understand like what they could really offer me until I started this walking around my neighborhood around and around. And I found these voices and these people, these podcast hosts that I could relate to. Like, they were the voices that I kind of needed to hear. The voices who told me, if you're feeling this way, it's okay. Or the voice who told me about what was going on in New York that I was missing, or the voice that told me like, do this with your kids because it works. So I found this sort of community online of these podcast hosts, and I started like I don't want to say addicted, but they were really, really important to me. It was like, I have a problem. I feel alone. Well, I'm going to listen to my friend who I thought was my friend because I heard her voice every day while I was listening to her podcast. And it just was this very important and kind of soothing experience for me. So I found podcasts in Germany. I really discovered them and understood like what a powerful medium they are. So, podcasting like helped me to survive because I thought I was going to at the beginning, I was like, I'm going to go crazy here because it's dark, gray, rains a lot. I don't have any friends. I was in my late 30s at the time. It's hard to make friends in your late 30s. When you're 20, it's just like everybody's cool and fun. But when you're in your late 30s and early 40s, you're like, I don't know. So it was, I found this great community of podcast hosts, and it literally saved me here, was really my go-to source for information, news, and even in some ways like camaraderie. Yeah.
entertainment. And I know, I always say, or it's not my phrase, I don't know who said it, but there is this phrase, your story. It's important that we tell our stories because your story could be somebody else's survival guide. That's what it was for you because you were literally depressed, and the people that you listened to, even they didn't even know that you were listening to them, but they
Yes.
helped you, get by. And I think that alone, for me, that means a lot to me as well, because sometimes I wonder why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm doing this podcasting. But I do know that now even more that there's a person somewhere like Rosamaria who will appreciate what I do.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, your listeners are like, oh, Elizabeth, oh, I need her voice today. I need to know about what she's going to tell me, or she's going to share with me another inspiring story. So it is like that. I mean, and it was like that for me because
That's
like,
amazing.
and there are studies about that. And I ended up doing my PhD research about this as well. I mean, there are studies that, podcast listeners do think that the hosts are their friends. Like they've established, and it's not a physical friendship. It's just this friendship that that lives in this audio medium, but that's how people feel, because it's like there is also this consistency with the voice in terms of like hearing it, either whether it's weekly or daily, whatever, or even monthly, but you know that person is going to drop an episode and that you're like, oh, I know how she feels about that. Or maybe she'll or he will surprise me. So there are studies about that. And, I feel like in some ways I'm kind of living proof of that studies, because that's how I felt. And I still feel like that with the podcasts that I listen to. It's like, I'm like, I need to find out what's going on about that. Let me hear from NPR's Life Kit of something along those lines, which would be one of the podcasts that I listen to.
Amazing. How did the book come about?
So when I started the PhD research, initially I thought I was going to do something about podcasting, but more from an academic perspective. And while I was talking to my tutors at Swansea University, that's where I did my PhD in Wales, they were like, Rosamaria, what? And I would tell them about my podcast listening and how I was, going kind of crazy in Germany. And they were like, this is actually kind of entertaining. And they're like, why don't you do this? Like, let's, you'll do a theoretical side to your academic studies, your PhD, but, how about you turn this into a memoir? And they thought it had legs to do that. So that's what I did. So I ended up writing about my experience in Germany and my, how podcasts, in essence, were my life buoy when I was here. And they, they still are. I listen to different shows than I listened to then. But there's still a constant, like whenever I get a moment, I'm either I'm catching up on a podcast, or I have we all have long lists of, or at least podcast listeners, we have long lists of podcasts that we want to listen to, that we want to get to. So yeah, there's still a constant in my life.
Where if somebody wants to buy it, it's called SOS Podcasts. Is it available on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. So anywhere you get your books, Amazon, in the US, it would be Barnes and Nobles, or in the UK, Waterstones, wherever people get their books, it's available, and it's available in all the different country Amazon stores. Yeah. And it's available Kindle, and you can get a hard copy too.
Fantastic. Now, where does the hypochondriac come in?
The hypochondriac comes in, it's constantly there. So, I picked up a lot of habits in Italy, I have to say. That initially, when I lived in Italy, I thought the Italians were, I felt like I was Italian in New York, but then when I moved to Italy, they were like, you're so not Italian, you're so American. So, because I did things very differently, even though I thought I was doing them an Italian way, I wasn't. So when I was there, like, I just picked up a lot of what I can now consider bad habits, or I actually like them, but at the time I thought they were bad habits. I just kind of like, Italian people are like super careful with their children. Not that other countries or other nationalities aren't, but like they don't let their kids, like they don't go out without scarves. Like they're afraid of cold air. So I at first I thought the Italians were crazy. I was like, why are they afraid of cold air and drafts, and air conditioning is like the worst in Italy. They hate air conditioning. And then as the more I lived there, the more I started to pick up these habits. So I've become like them, but with my children. So, my children do not leave the house without white undershirts on, because like they don't, and I don't care how hot it is outside, and it's not that hot in Germany, but they wear undershirts. They always when I see them they get off the bus for school, I'm like, why don't you have a jacket on? And now I'm obsessed with what they're eating. When it's like, did you have pasta today? I want to make sure they've had their dose of carbs and that they've had a balanced meal. Or I worry about germs a lot and dirt. Meanwhile, like the German kids are like, they're playing on the street, and I'm like, oh my God, don't dirty your hands. So, it's very, sometimes I wish I was more laid back. I really do, because I think my life would be a lot easier because I would worry about less things. But it's just, I can't turn it off. Like I just worry. So it's exhausting. I see it's so funny. My kids go to an international school. So when they take the bus in the morning, the kids are, there's American kids, and then there's my kids, and then there's Norwegians and a whole mix, right? And like the Norwegians, it's, it's been about like 15 degrees here, which is nice. Okay. The Norwegians have shorts on. Okay. Because they think it's, summer. The Americans, they are, the parents don't, they're very easygoing. And then there's my kids who I still have hats on. And then my son said to me, he's like, Mommy, why do I still have to wear this? It's warm out. And I was like, but it's cold in the morning. So yeah, it's exhausting to be like this. It is. I wish I could like be a little less on, because again, I think it would be better for me. But it's hard to turn it off. I picked it up in Italy. They've done this to me. I think the Italians have.
It's a Southern thing because you could just be Cypriot.
Really?
It's the same here. Absolutely the same. And my kids used to, play in the street, be half naked. Like my kids were your Norwegian version.
Okay, yes.
And exactly the same. I mean, I sometimes used to look at the Cypriot children and I used to think, aren't they hot with all the stuff that they have? So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it's not you. It's not just you, and it's not just the Italians. I think it's just, and it's fine. There's nothing it's a mentality thing, and there's nothing
Yeah.
you can do about it. And at the end of the day, we all get older, and we all, many other things. I don't think that health and your life depends on what you wear as a child.
Yeah, and I noticed, you know what? My kids get sick anyway.
Exactly. Everybody gets sick.
Yeah. And sometimes I think they get sick even more.
Yeah.
Because I probably haven't exposed them to enough germs. But yeah, that's just, I am that way. But I think as they get older, I'm trying to relax more and to be less helicopter mom.
How old are they now?
They are 11 and 7. So they're getting bigger.
Soon they're going to tell you what they want to wear.
That's also true. And my daughter already does that. So she's like, I'm not wearing that. I'm like, yes, you are, please. But
yeah, that's very funny. It did sound like a Cypriot mother to me for a little while when you were talking before. Tell me, how often do you go back home? Or, home. How often do you go back to the US?
I probably like twice a year. I go back often because I have my families there. So, I mean, they're the thing that I miss the most of living overseas. Cause I think that like, at least I think women in general, I think we're able to adapt to wherever we are, and make a home for ourselves. And I feel like I've been able to do that in Germany, but I do miss the other home, the New York home. So we do go back at least twice a year because, grandma's there and cousins are there. So we go back to New York at least twice a year.
And is your husband's posting a permanent thing, or is there a possibility that he may be placed somewhere else?
So his posting was first for 4 years. And then what happened was his posting ended and he ended up getting offered a position here. And that was another sleepless, endless weeks of deciding what to do, either go back to Italy or stay in here in Germany. I mean, I write about this in the book at the end, and, we weighed the pros and the cons, and we saw the quality of life that our kids were having, and that even our quality of life was better. Mm-hmm. And I've made I've made my peace with Germany. So we decided that it was, for now, that it would be good that we stayed. So we're here. I don't want to say forever because that's really scary.
Yeah, forever is a long time. Nothing is forever.
I don't want to say forever. So for now, we're here.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Do you feel that, because I'm in a same position like you are, I am living in another country. Do you feel that because you have to go home twice, you don't have to, but you want to go home twice a year, does it take time away from other traveling?
Absolutely. We don't go anywhere but New York, or we go to Napoli because my husband's mom lives in Naples. So that's where we go. We either go to Napoli or we go to New York. And it's so funny. My kids are like, oh, we're going to New York again. And I'm like, you don't want to go to New York? I'm like, New York is fantastic. But like, yeah, that's where we go. We are traveling is like, when we have big chunks of time, and vacation from work, we choose to spend it with family. But for me, it's okay. I'm okay with it. I'm happy because I do miss my family. So the time that I get to spend with them is precious. And then when what happens is your parents get older,
Oh,
and you feel like you want to be close to them as much as you can. And when you live far away, and this, you can only do so much from a foreign country. Like you can't be there for everything. You can only be there for certain things, and it's challenging. So, but yeah, I laugh. We don't go anywhere. We either go to Napoli or New York. That's it.
yeah, I know the feeling. But I think you don't want to look back and think I should have gone more often, because sooner or later, when your parents get old, or did you say that your grandma is still alive?
No, my mom. So I'm
Okay.
grandma for my kids. Yes, my mom.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't want to look back and regret. So you're
No.
doing the right thing. But your kids are going to grow up. Things are going to change. Where would you like to travel to if you could?
You know what? I've been to a lot of places in Europe, but I haven't been to Spain. So I'd like to go to Spain. The only place I've been to, I haven't been to the big cities in Spain. I've only been to with the Vatican. We went to Santiago de Compostela, and we did like a 10-kilometer pilgrimage by foot, which was very cool. But I would like to see Barcelona. I'd like to see, and that's kind of close here, so that shouldn't be that difficult. But I would like to go to Japan too, but I don't know if I can handle a long flight. I did do Australia once, and it was just, I'll never do that again. I know that sounds terrible, but it was just so long. And I'm like an anxious person. So I was like, but I was young. So I guess I could handle it. But I mean, Japan's not that far. I think it's like 13, 14 hours, at least from Germany. So that I'd like to do as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just one long distance flight. Australia is far.
It's far.
Really
Yeah.
a very, very long one. So you mentioned Santiago de Compostela. Did you do? So you did a bit of the Camino.
I did the Camino. Yeah, I did like the last 10 kilometers. We did.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Tell me about that.
It was great. I mean, we had the Vatican has this pilgrimage arm, and that's the arm that I worked for in comms, and we were inaugurating a basically how we had now had these chartered flights from Rome to Santiago, and that you could basically participate in the pilgrimage, and you could break it up into whatever pieces that you wanted. So we organized a trip from Rome to Santiago, and then we landed, and then we walked the last 10 kilometers, and then we made it to the cathedral. So it was great. I mean, 10 kilometers was not a lot. So it was something doable, but I would love to do more. I would love to do more of that. But yeah, it was amazing just to be outside. It was just beautiful. And the people just, yeah, fantastic.
I think it's especially the people that you meet along the way. And I think there's all sorts of versions that you can do. You can do a long version, a short version. You can carry your luggage or not carry your luggage. So I'm sort of, we were talking about it recently with a friend, and I said, I've never really thought about it, but the more it sort of, I keep hearing it. So, it's like the thing that you keep hearing, and you feel like maybe I would want to try that, a bit of it at least.
Yeah, you could also do it. It's also like in Italy, they have like the Camino di San Francesco. So you can do the one in Assisi too. That brings you to the cathedral there as well. So yeah, there's all these it's become this kind of walking in the footsteps of Saint Francis, or walking in the footsteps of San Giacomo, or even we did which was very, very cool. We did a pilgrimage to Syria before it became like a war-torn country. And we did it was in the footsteps of St. Paul. And that was amazing too. That was amazing. A little scary, I have to say. It wasn't like Santiago, but we were, then it was a time when Syria was really trying to push its tourism. And this was before everything that happened, but this was probably like 2009 as well. But yeah, that was great too. There's so many of these opportunities. It's just a matter of finding them,
Was that with the Vatican when you went to
That was with the Vatican, yeah, in the footsteps of St. Paul, because St. Paul had actually walked through Syria, in Aleppo and all of those places. Yeah,
he was here. He came. There is a place in Paphos which
right.
they were preaching Christian, and that they were punished for it. So he had to hide. There's a story here.
Okay.
So those must have been fascinating times, whatever, if they happened or if they didn't happen, who knows? But if they did happen, these times must have been amazing.
Sure.
Yeah. I think we have more or less covered, because I don't really know when we started, you see, because we had a little hiccup at the beginning. But
That's right.
that is totally fine. The last thing that I want to know from you is, you now teach in Brussels. So, no, another thing that I wanted to ask you before, when you were talking about the walking in Italy, and have you figured out where the Germans walk to?
No. No, they just go around in circles, and they also use walking sticks. Like I don't know why they use walking sticks. It's very flat here. I thought walking sticks were for like inclination, but maybe I'm wrong. But I don't know. They just walk around. It's so weird because, like, on a Sunday, everything is closed, and they even walk on Sunday. So it's not like you can go to like a coffee shop or something. They're closed, so they just walk around, and they're happy. They're happy.
That's good enough. As long walking makes you happy. Your brain releases serotonin, the happiness hormone.
They don't need a destination. They're happy to be. I think they're just happy to be outside.
How often do you go to Brussels then? How far is it?
So I work full time for Fairtrade International. I don't know if you know them. Do you know Fairtrade International?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a certification scheme that ensures that products have that they've been made without child labor and so forth.
Yeah.
There's coffee and cocoa and all that stuff. So I work in communications for them. But I am an adjunct professor at the Brussels School of Governance, and I also work for the University of Maryland Global Campus. So when I'm needed, I teach a class here and there because I love teaching. But I work for Fairtrade full time, which I really love as well. I mean, it's really nice to work for an organization that has a good mission, and Fairtrade's mission is really good. And I think in some ways I've kind of always been led in that direction between the Vatican, and then I worked for a group of sisters, the Good Shepherd International Foundation in Rome. And now Fairtrade. I think I've always sort of been led to these mission driven organizations. So it's really nice to do stuff where, it's not just about making a profit, it's about making a difference. Yeah. So that's really nice.
I think that is very important. I think it's sustainable, and it's something that, you can go to sleep in the evening and you know that you haven't harmed anybody. On the contrary, you are doing something good. And now you can wear a miniskirt if you want.
I can. And I can wear, look, you can't see me. Or you can see me, but your audience will. I have blue nail polish on, so I can do that now. It's fantastic. Yeah.
You're making up for all the time that you missed. Yes. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. You have a website. I'm going to put the link to your website in the show notes, and the Amazon link of the book.
That's great. It's been so lovely to speak with you.
Thank you so much for being on Most Memorable Journeys, Rosamaria Mancini.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.